Hi, I'm Gauri from India. I am here for the interactive session with health journalist at Pint, Vaishali Sood, and we are going to speak out on covering corona constructively, which mainly based on the coverage of corona as a problem, what does the people need, and finally the solution. So I'm pretty much happy to have you on the session, Vaishali. Hope you're feeling good.
Thank you so much, Gauri. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Vaishali, we are going to the question session. And for the sake of audience, could you please explain the current status of corona pandemic in our country?
Okay, Gauri, just to give you a brief, I'm a health journalist with about 20 years of experience in India, and I'm the health editor for The Quint. It's been an insane time for all journalists out there, and specifically for health journalists. We went from the margins of newspapers and uh, broadcasts in other scenarios to pretty much becoming the daily news coverage and getting the prime time slot, so to speak. And the pandemic has been a great learning curve for all of us. The pandemic first hit India on 30th of January, and the first three cases were in fact reported from your state, Gauri, in Kerala, when three students who had returned from China had tested positive. And since then, the numbers progressively went up, and the graph for the longest time was just on the rise. Currently, in the past, we've had 9.91 million cases in India. We are ranked second in the number of cases in the world. We've we've had 144,000 deaths recorded in the country. But the good news is that, the numbers are beginning to slow down. The numbers are beginning to go down. Yesterday, we recorded the lowest active daily cases in the country, which was at around 22,000. Recovery rate is up to 95%. So, I mean, there's obviously been this whole graph that we've gone through as a country, and some states were more impacted than the other, but we're beginning to see a bit of a downward turn in the curve for the first time, and that's good news for India.
Good sign, I think. Yes, it's a good sign. And next question is, vaccine coverage has been intense and non-stop. With the need to maximize coverage, some media in resorting to sensationalism and creating a sense of panic. So what will be the result of such a negative approach on common people?
Okay, so Gauri, on behalf of my fellow journalists, let me tell you, I don't think anyone in the world had a clue on how to cover this pandemic. This is completely new for all of us, right? So the initial focus was on numbers and how many people have had the virus and where, which part of the country. So pretty much every news channel and a digital website or a newspaper had dedicated space to tracking the numbers. And you see that little square with daily increase of numbers every day. It tends to set a sense of panic.
It tends nervousness, yeah.
Yeah,
nervousness.
I remember one epidemiologist telling me that you guys are tracking it like you track a cricket score, right?
Yes, right.
It's not a cricket match. It's it's a long inning. So you have to so the sense of panic that initially came in everyone, including the journalists, was because of this need to cover it intensely. And yes, it did have. I mean, whenever you cover something too broadly, there is going to be some amount of sensationalism that certain organizations will indulge in. And this is where I felt that us as digital networks did better. We became the place where a lot of people would come for information. We focused our coverage on information. So what is this pandemic? What is this virus? How does it impact you? What is the recovery rate? This was information that was really important to share with people because of the fear psychosis that, it's fatal. It can prove to be fatal. So it was important to tell people that 98% of people will recover from this disease. So I think we, in the digital media, certainly saw a large number of people coming to us for not breathless coverage of the pandemic, but for information and for focused news. So yes, there was a 24-hour coverage. There still is a 24-hour coverage because the pandemic has seen various movements. Now the vaccine process is going to start very soon.
Vaccine developments are there.
And so again, there'll be a breathless coverage of when the vaccine is coming and when will it get the emergency authorization. But I think our job as journalists is to constantly give information in correct, concise manner so that, a reader or a viewer is not overwhelmed with the flow of information.
Yes, Vaishali, it's right. Okay. Next is, as a journalist, can you tell us in brief the information that the people need to know about the pandemic when it comes to the coverage, and does the present coverage of Indian media when it comes to the pandemic is too much, or is there much information overloaded?
Gauri, I think there's, when I talk to people outside our journalism world or doctors or epidemiologists who are closely tracking it, so obviously their central conversation is about the pandemic. The questions that we get from readers are very basic still. People are still wanting to know about the tests. If I think I have the virus, what test should I get done? There are 3 tests available. Which one is more apt for me? People want to know, what are my symptoms? I have symptoms which are similar to that of flu or a seasonal flu or common cold, etc. What are my symptoms? So people are still wanting very basic and straight information. And then currently, as I said, everyone wants to know, when will I get the vaccine? Will I get the vaccine? Should I get the vaccine? Should I be on that priority list? So I think the information is very utility driven. How does the pandemic impact me? How do I take care of myself and my family? And give me information that is useful to me instead of bombarding information at me.
So I think this is due to the misinformation that spread through some social. I think some social media platforms are continuously giving misinformation. That's the main thing why people are moving towards the basic information they want.
Right. So here at the Quint, we have a fact-checking website. It's called a section called WebCoof. So we really scaled it up in the last few months. We launched a health WebCoof platform where we were inviting people to send in their questions. We were very actively tracking fake news and busting it. The unfortunate thing about fake news is that, fake news spreads much faster than a fact check. And so we are trying our level best to get our information out as soon as possible. We are trying our fact checks out as soon as possible. We are trying to share these fact checks in the same medium where misinformation spreads. And in India, that medium is largely WhatsApp. So we're trying to get our fact checks in that space as soon as possible. And we've got a panel of experts who are constantly sharing, verified information with us. We have a group and a connection with the WHO bodies. So we're constantly in conversation with them to, get the correct and precise information across.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vaishali, for that answer. And as a journalist, we have discussed something, the problem and about the needs of people. And now we are moving to the very crucial session that as a journalist, how can you cover Corona constructively and what are its good sides? And is there any plus points while covering Corona that in a constructive manner?
I mean, Gauri, there was a lot of learning for us as journalists as well through the pandemic, right? We are driven by information and we want as much information as possible. And so, there is that desire in us to share that information pretty immediately with the audience. And at some point during the pandemic, we realized that an exhaustion has set in. People are tired. People are looking for a little bit more hopeful news. People are looking for positivity. People don't want to be bombarded with scary scenarios. So that was essential learning for us, and we started to turn our coverage around, and we started to talk about mental health, and we started doing podcasts around mental health. We got leading psychiatrists and psychologists to answer questions that people had about mental health and about resilience, about living through these very, very tough times that we all have found ourselves in. And so our focus shifted not just to giving information about the pandemic, but to more broader, wholesome information that people were seeking, and a little bit more positive information that people were seeking. So we've while it's our job as journalists to give the latest study or the latest report, or if there's severe cases, what happens to those severe cases, it is also our job to make sure that we are accompanying that information with some positivity. Otherwise, it can get really depressing for the reader to constantly read that kind of news. So we've tried to do that, Gauri, and we've got a panel of doctors, mental health experts who are working with us. And whenever someone sends a question, we are very happy to respond to those as well.
Okay, Vaishali, and another important thing, it's a statement. Okay, please explain it for me. Giving reports on the latest developments on vaccines could help to increase hope and positivity among the people. Do you agree?
Yeah. Gauri, the fact of the matter is that India doesn't have a vaccine approved as of today, right? I mean, we hear news about the US, which has already approved the Pfizer vaccine and will shortly approve the Moderna vaccine. You hear news from other parts of the world where certain vaccines have been approved. And so there is that sense of urgency and that sense of why have we not got those vaccines yet amongst people, and people have questions around vaccines. Is it safe for me to take it? It is the fastest developed vaccine ever in the history of vaccines. Did someone cut corners to get here? There are a lot of questions that people have, and it is important to give that information out precisely and to the point, and also inform people that not all of us are going to get the vaccine immediately, right? There's a process involved. And so where do you stand in that priority group? Frontline health workers, people above the age of 80, people above the age of 50, people with comorbidities, they stand first in line to get these vaccines. And so it's important to give that information out as well. And so while we very positive, while we give information about the different types of vaccines at play, and in India specifically, we give information about the type of vaccines that are still in trial stages, because those are more suited to our country. It's also important to give that information about why, when, and how will you get that vaccine.
Okay. Right. And
also important to temper our expectations, right? So it's important to temper our expectations as well. An approval in the US doesn't mean you and I are getting it tomorrow here in India. So
okay. Yeah. Okay, I have to add one thing, that if you have any questions, you can post it on #constructiveconference on Twitter. Okay, and the next question, Vaishali ma'am, is can you mention the major takeaways for you as a health journalist in the last year? Did your journalism evolve?
It's a really good question. I think I would like to believe it did for all of us, because, I think we all found ourselves in a very, very difficult situation where, as I said, our first urge as a journalist is to share whatever information we are getting with the people immediately. And, at some point during the year, we realized that, as you said, there's something called over-information, and you need to really temper, and you need to convey that information in a meaningful manner without creating panic. So while we were questioning the government, while there was a PPE crisis in the country, while we were doing stories on that, while we were doing stories on the cold chain requirement of the country, and do we have enough? We're doing stories on hospital beds and shortage of hospital beds, and people running around from one hospital to the other in search of beds when the numbers rose in various parts of the country. While we were doing those stories and we were questioning the government on arrangements in towns and cities that were not as developed as some of the metropolitan cities in the country, it was also a job to give information which was factual, to the point, and answered the FAQs, the frequently asked questions that people had. So I personally felt my journalism certainly evolved over the period of last 9 months for us here in India. And
almost 1 year now.
Yeah, almost 1 year now. And these are takeaways that I would like to take with me as I go forward. Yeah, certainly.
Okay, thank you, Vaishali, for answering my questions and queries. And anyone, if anyone have questions, please let me know. So, Corona pandemic has really affected our life, especially as a student. I couldn't adapt the digital classrooms and all. And I think media have to focus more on the solution than making the problem more worse. So it will be great and generate a sense of positivity and hope for the people, those who are affected by the pandemic. Peace journalism is therefore.
Gauri, I was wondering, you as a journalism student and you're watching all this coverage unfold around you, what were your thoughts, and where did you go as a journalism student to get your news? And
I personally want to say that I used to know the developments, day by day developments from the news, and I used to wonder that they are generating a sense of panic rather than giving correct information, and also the social media is giving a headache for us, because last day I have seen some misinformation that garlic and something would give us, we will rescue us from corona, and this all misinformation. There's no medical certification for that. So these all informations make us to change our perception that to take correct medical treatment. So such a situation will make all the people living in my country into a worse situation. So this is the thing. I have to stick to the constructive concept, because such a situation should be avoided in our country. That's my main aim. So that's why I'm strictly pointing towards the constructive approach.
Right.
Okay. Therefore, the peace journalism is a need for this hour, I think.
Right. So I mean, we also saw. I remember talking to doctors where I think you asked me about misinformation, and that really creates real life problems for people, right? I mean, we had doctors told us there were people coming in with turmeric poisoning because someone somewhere said that if you have enough turmeric in your every day, you'll be able to avoid getting the infection, the coronavirus. So I mean, we have all kinds of misinformation floating around, and it's very important that not just journalists, but the community as a whole sort of gets together and busts fake news and misinformation. And I think you guys have an important role to play as well as journalism students.
Yeah, I've also heard some information that COVID-19 spreads to 5G, and that's a funny thing that I've heard over, because such a misinformation will make people think that all the things are getting worse and worse, and what would I do? And that sort of thought will make them mentally ill, I think. So to avoid that, we can do something, that is provide correct and objective information. As a journalist, I prefer to give objective and correct information at a time.
Right.
We have a question.
Okay.
There was a statement that from Manju Rose from India that said it is necessary to build a close relationship with the readers to gain the trust of the people. How do you think you can build trust with your audience during a crisis?
Can you present it? Leah, can you present it?
Okay, Gauri, I heard the question.
Okay. The question is like, I think it's like building credibility among the people.
Amongst readers, right?
Among readers.
I think audience engagement is really important. We should certainly not take our readers and our audience for granted. And some of the ways that we've kept this conversation going is at the end of most of our COVID-related pieces, we've got we'll be asking people to write in with their questions. We have our editor at the Quint ID open, and we're taking in a lot of frequently asked questions and we're putting them out. Again, as I said, through our Webproof, which is a fact-checking platform, we're advertising our numbers and our emails very actively because we want people to reach out to us and, with not just questions and fake news and etc. that they want us to bust, but also with feedback. So through podcasts, we invite people to talk to us about, nuances and focus of coverage that they would like us to do. So we've been doing that. Our newsletters actively reach out to people, and we're very open to feedback on how our coverage is going. So I absolutely agree there has to be a sense of trust and and that need to build that trust with the readers. And I would like to think that we are actively doing it. I mean, there's obviously more that you can do, but yes, from my perspective, I think we're beginning to do that. Yes.
Okay. Is there any questions?
Do you think your audience trusts you more now than before the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a good question, I think. Do you think like that? Before the pandemic, the journalism as a whole, there is a misconception that people are not at all having a trust on such journalists and journalism concept. But after the pandemic, what do you think? Is that changed or still there?
There is certainly a sense of mistrust amongst people, and that's also because of the, I guess the media has to take responsibility for some of that mistrust. And, whenever there's a very active media industry in any country that has, very different viewpoints that they present, there is a mistrust that is built up. We try very actively to, and I do believe, at least from our readers, the feedback we've got that our very focused, information-driven coverage has got us a lot of good feedback, and I'm hoping some of that mistrust that they may generally have with the larger media, we've been able to dent it. One hopes that's happened. I understand the mistrust and I appreciate the mistrust, and we as journalists have to actively work towards, reducing that mistrust. And I do believe that through the pandemic, with a very focused coverage, we've managed to achieve some of that. Okay. There's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, and media has to owe up to the responsibility, to its responsibility towards creating this mistrust. And I hope we are able to do that, going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions?
You mentioned that one of the places that fake news about Corona spreads in India is on WhatsApp. Have you experienced misinformation about the pandemic on social media?
Yes, so much. It's nice. I too have an experience like that.
They call it information, the second pandemic, right? Misinformation pandemic or disinformation pandemic. And it's, as I said in the beginning, that fake news travels so much faster than fact checks. And just the sheer amount of misinformation around the pandemic has created so much panic in people. With doctors talking about patients not wanting to take treatment, not wanting to get the tests done because they believe home remedies will cure them of the virus, And I think the various ways through which misinformation spreads, and one is through the social media, but one is also through certain statements that politicians make in public, right? We've had that problem in India, and we very actively not just busted fake news, but also called out leaders and said that you need to be responsible with the information that you're sharing, because how that is interpreted and understood is can have very serious ramifications for people. So yeah, I mean, I see like a barrage of misinformation thrown at me pretty much every single day. And I'm hopeful that through our constant fake news busting, we're able to at least make a dent in this industry. Unfortunately, that industry is thriving, and we all, and I said, it's not just journalists, it's a community that has to step in and prevent this pandemic from taking over. Yeah.
Both the community and the journalists have equal responsibility in reducing the fake news, right?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Any questions?
We have 5 minutes left, so do you have anything final you want to say, sum up what we've talked about?
Yeah, Vaishali ma'am, is there anything you have to sum up?
I mean, the conversation is interesting because you don't often talk to, at least in the last few months, you've not had a chance to talk to young people who are, journalism students. And it's important to get this constant feedback and perspective because we are so secure in our own world, right? So it's important to get this constant feedback. And I'm very happy to have been able to answer your questions, Corey. And I do take whatever you've said about, reporting constructively very seriously. And we at the Quint have been trying to do that. And I know a lot of digital platforms who've been very dedicatedly trying to do that. A lot of health journalists are frustrated with over-information and are frustrated with, the way the news has been covered. And so there is that sense of frustration even amongst journalists, and we're hoping that this constant feedback from young journalists like you sort of force us to acknowledge the problems and address them.
Thank you, Vaishali ma'am, and I appreciate the initiatives that Quint put forward for giving informations to people, and it's a very happy step forward, because it's the need today, because we need the correct information. So it's a good initiative. Thank you for that.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been a good conversation, Leah.
We actually have one final question before we're done.
Oh, yes.
We got a question on Twitter for you, Vaishali. Have you looked at post-COVID health issues of the people who got cured? Are there any studies happening to sensitize the public through constructive stories? So can you write any constructive stories about people who have recovered from COVID?
We have very actively covered what's called the long haul COVID and the post-COVID impact. So we very actively covered these stories. We've spoken to these people. We've spoken to doctors. We've spoken to internal medicine doctors who are actually dealing with people once they're discharged from the ICUs. And the problems that they're facing are serious problems, heart disease, lung issues, mental health issues, hallucinations. I mean, there's just a whole lot of issues people are facing once they've left the ICUs, and those who've had long-term impact. I mean, I have a young colleague who's 36 who's dealing with heart disease after she was diagnosed with COVID. So we're very actively covering it. We're giving the information out, and we're also constantly telling people through our stories that you need to, even if you've had a mild case of the virus, it's important to be constantly in touch with your doctors to keep your parameters in check and not take your recovery for granted. So we've done graphics, we've done stories, we've done people stories, we've had doctors talk about it. So yes, we are, and we will have to continue to do this because the impact of the pandemic for those who had the virus will be not easily over. And so we have to continue to do this even once the vaccine comes in and the noise around the pandemic starts to go down. We have to constantly.
Yeah, I think that giving stories of those who have recovered from the virus pandemic will be a hope to other people, because they are looking for such a news. In my opinion, they are looking for such a news. Is there anyone who have experienced such a thing and how they recovered? And if the common people came to know such a thing, they will be much happier, and also they will be calm. I think like that.